Jack Nicklaus stood at a microphone in 2021 and said something that should have stopped the golf world cold. It did not. He reminded me of myself. That was Jack Nicklaus. The greatest golfer who ever lived. A man who does not distribute compliments the way others distribute handshakes. When Nicklaus says a name in that tone, history has learned to pay attention. The golf world in this particular moment did not. The question is not whether Bryson DeChambeau is good at golf. That much was never in doubt. The question, the one nobody wanted to sit with, is whether the world allowed itself to see what was actually in front of it. Whether the noise drowned out the signal. Whether we watched something historic unfold and chose, collectively, to argue about it instead of witness it. That is exactly what we are here to find out. Bryson DeChambeau did not arrive at golf the way most tour players do. There was no silver spoon, no private academy, no father who had played on tour and handed down the secrets. He grew up in Modesto, California, the son of a contractor and a teacher. The money was not there. The connections were not there. What was there from an unusually young age was an obsession, not just with hitting a golf ball, but with understanding why the ball moved the way it did. He studied physics at Southern Methodist University, not sports management, not business, physics. He read Homer Kelly's The Golfing Machine, a book so dense and technical that most tour players treat it as a punchline. DeChambeau treated it as a syllabus. He developed a single-length iron system, every club the same length, built on biomechanical principles he had calculated himself. The tour laughed, politely mostly, but they laughed. He won the 2015 NCAA Individual Championship and the US Amateur in the same year. Only Jack Nicklaus and Phil Mickelson had ever done that. The golf world noted it, filed it away, moved on. What followed on tour was not a gradual climb, it was a sustained demonstration. In his first full PGA Tour season, he won. In his third, he won twice more. By 2020, he had already collected 4 tour titles. But the statistic that should have silenced every skeptic came that summer at Winged Foot Golf Club during the United States Open Championship. Winged Foot is not a course that forgives ambition. It is a course specifically designed to punish it. Its rough is punishing, its greens are severe. Historically, Winged Foot has broken players who arrived with too much confidence and not enough discipline. The winning score at the 1974 US Open there was 7 over par. The 2006 edition produced a winner at 5 over. The architecture of the place demands humility. DeChambeau birdied the 72nd hole to win by 6 shots at Winged Foot in the United States Open. He was the only player in the field who finished under par. The margin of victory was the largest in a US Open in 26 years. He averaged 344.4 yards off the tee for the week, longer than anyone in US Open history to that point. He did not find every fairway. He did not need to. He had done the math, and the math told him that length, managed correctly, was worth more than precision from shorter distances. He had not just won, he had proposed a new theory of how major championship golf could be played, and the golf world spent the next several weeks debating his physique. There is a particular kind of resistance that greets any athlete who wins differently than expected. It is not quite hatred, it is something more complicated, a collective discomfort, a reluctance to grant legitimacy to a method that feels like a challenge to the established order. DeChambeau had spent years building a body that could generate extraordinary clubhead speed. He had worked with coaches, nutritionists, trainers. He had added significant mass, deliberately, methodically, as part of a documented athletic plan. The results were visible and the results were extraordinary. The golf world's response was to question the results. His diet became a topic of national sports conversation. The shakes, the eggs, the protein. Commentators who had spent decades covering athletes in every discipline suddenly discovered strong opinions about how a golfer had chosen to train. Meanwhile, the scorecard at Winged Foot sat there, patient and undeniable. Then came the equipment controversy. DeChambeau began pursuing drivable speeds that the existing equipment framework had not anticipated. He worked with manufacturers on shafts and heads designed to withstand forces that conventional clubs could not handle. Shafts broke, Heads failed. He played through it publicly, sometimes visibly frustrated. Critics catalogued each broken club as evidence of excess rather than evidence of the extraordinary forces he was generating. The golf was never the problem. It was everything surrounding it. Jack Nicklaus was not the only one who noticed. He was simply the most credible voice to say it plainly. Rory McIlroy, a man who chooses his words with care, spoke about DeChambeau's 2020 US Open victory with genuine admiration. "What he did at Winged Foot was unbelievable," McIlroy said. "To win a US Open by 6 shots, playing the way he played, is an incredible achievement." This is not a quote from a peer managing expectations. It is recognition from one of the finest players of his generation. Brooks Koepka, whose relationship with DeChambeau generated more column inches than either man likely wanted, was on record acknowledging the power and the precision. Even amid the rivalry, the respect for the ball striking was never genuinely in question among players who had seen it firsthand. Tour professionals understand the difference between someone who wins by fortune and someone who wins by mastery. The locker room, whatever it said publicly, understood what it was witnessing. Tiger Woods, whose opinion on golf carries a weight that requires no explanation, spoke about DeChambeau's distance gains as something the game had not previously encountered in this form. "He's changed the way we think about power in the game," Woods said. Coming from the athlete who redefined athleticism in professional golf 20 years prior, that statement is not casual praise. The peers knew. The peers had always known. The story did not end at Winged Foot. Stories like this rarely end cleanly. The years that followed brought wrist injuries, physical setbacks that slowed him at moments when his momentum felt unstoppable. The transition to LIV Golf in 2022 removed him from the PGA Tour stage and, for many casual observers, removed him from the conversation entirely. There are those who read that departure as a retreat. The record does not entirely support that reading. What the record shows is a golfer who returned to major championship contention with the same systematic intensity that defined him from the beginning. The 2024 US Open at Pinehurst No. 2 was not a coronation. It was a battle, the kind that reveals character rather than simply confirming talent. DeChambeau won it. His second US Open title, his second major, secured on one of American golf's most demanding stages. He became the first player since Curtis Strange in 1988 and 1989 to win back-to-back US Opens, a comparison that places him in company that the statistics demand. Jack Nicklaus won 4 US Opens. He watched DeChambeau win his second and offered words that he has never distributed lightly. The lineage he invoked was not accidental. It was specific. It was deliberate. Nicklaus does not gesture toward his own legacy carelessly. Nobody listened then. Some are beginning to listen now. What Bryson DeChambeau represents, beyond the titles, beyond the distance records, beyond the physique and the physics textbooks, is a particular kind of courage that sport does not always reward in the moment. The courage of arriving with a completely different answer to a question everyone thought had already been settled. Golf had an accepted architecture. Certain courses rewarded certain shapes of shot. Certain swings were considered elegant and therefore correct. Certain body types were considered appropriate for the demands of the game. DeChambeau examined each of those assumptions and, one by one, tested them against data rather than tradition. He was not rebellious for its own sake, he was methodical. The rebellion was a byproduct of the method. That is a rarer thing than it sounds. Most athletes, even exceptional ones, operate within the established framework and try to be the best version of what has already been defined. DeChambeau tried to redefine the framework itself. That is what Nicklaus recognized in 2021. Not just the talent, the architecture of the thinking. The golf world spent several years treating that thinking as a spectacle, something to observe with curiosity and mild suspicion rather than something to take seriously. Meanwhile, the man at the center of the spectacle kept working, kept calculating, kept competing. 2 major championships, a 6-shot victory at Winged Foot, back-to-back US Open titles in an era of extraordinary depth. The facts were always there. The question worth sitting with is not whether Bryson DeChambeau belongs among the greats. That question has an answer now, and the answer is written in the record books. The question worth sitting with is why it took so long to hear what Jack Nicklaus was saying, and what else right now are we choosing not to listen to?